Alright, welcome back. Welcome. What I'm going to look at today is we're going to do another lesson on scale drawing. Alright? We have our first example here. It says, on a map, the distance between Louisville, Kentucky and Nashville, Tennessee is 1 3/4 inches. The scale of the map is 1 inch equal 100 miles. What is the actual distance between the two cities? Remember, once we're solving a question or word problem, once we have a word problem, we have to ensure that we identify the key components and what the question is asking us to find. Alright? So let's identify the key components of it. It says on a map. This is very important because when we see on a map in the model and so on, it tells us the measurement is going to be a scale, the scale length. Alright? So it says on a map, the distance between Louisville, Kentucky and Nashville, Tennessee is 1 3/4 inches. That is saying on the map. So scale, this will be your scale length here because it says on a map. The distance between the two cities is 1 3/4 inches. Alright, let's continue. The scale of the map is 1 inch equal to 100 miles. So that's the scale that is given. What is the actual distance? So that's what we want to find. What is the actual distance between the two cities? So we want to find the actual distance here. When we're doing scale drawing, remember, we always use scale over actual. Always use scale over actual. So we have the scale length over the actual length. Always scale length over actual length. And if we could take a look back at the question, the scale that is given, we said that we always write the scale that is given in ratio in the form of a fraction. So the scale that is always given, that's the first thing we need to do. We want to write it as a ratio in the form of a fraction. The first term goes in the numerator, second term goes in the denominator. We're going to write it as a proportion. Alright? In the question it tells us that on the map between the two cities it is 1 3/4. So 1 3/4 is going to be our scale length. And remember, scale length goes in the numerator, sorry. Scale length goes in the numerator. So 1 3/4 will go in the numerator. And we want to find the actual, so that goes in the denominator. Alright? Given a question such as this, it's best to convert our mixed fraction to an improper fraction. How do we convert mixed fraction to improper fraction? We have 1 3/4. We multiply the denominator with the whole number and we add the numerator to it, the result. So 4 times 1 will give us 4 plus 3, that's going to give me 7. And we use the same denominator, so that's 7/4. So we can rewrite this. That's going to be 1/100 is equal to 7/4 all over x. Alright? Next step is to cross multiply. 1 times x And we have 100 multiplied by 7 over 4. It's best to be working with all fraction. So we can change this whole number 100 as a fraction by just putting a 1 under it. Right? To convert any whole number to a fraction, or to change any whole number to a fraction, we put a 1 under that whole number. It becomes a fraction. It does not change the value of the number. 1 times x, that's going to give us x. We're multiplying fraction, we multiply across. 100 times 7, that's going to give me 700. 1 times 4, that's going to give me 4. And you can use your calculator. 700 divided by 4 will give me, so x is going to be equal to 175, and it's going to be miles. So 175 miles, that is. Alright? So the actual distance between Louisville, Kentucky and Nashville, Tennessee, it is actually 175 miles. But on the map, it is 1 3/4 inches apart, right? But in real life, it is 175 miles apart. Example 2. Loretta made a scale drawing of an elephant, 1.5 inch, using a scale of 1/4 inch equal 2 feet. What is the actual length of the elephant? So she made a scale drawing of the elephant, 1.5 inch. Alright? So scale drawing, we know that's going to be 1.5 inch. It says that she used a scale of 1/4 inch equal 2 feet. Question asks us now, what is the actual length of the elephant? Alright, so we are given the scale length of the elephant. We are given the scale that they used to draw the scale drawing of the elephant. So remember, first step, scale length over the actual length. Alright, always scale length over the actual length. The scale that is given in the question, we write it as a ratio in the form of a fraction. That's the first step. So 1/4 is the first term. We put that in the numerator. And 2 feet is the second term that goes in the denominator. Is equal to 1.5 inch. They tell us that's the scale, right? Scale drawing. So that goes in the numerator. So we have 1.5 in the numerator. We want to find the actual, so that goes in the denominator. So the actual length is what we want to find, goes in the denominator. Next, we cross multiply. 1/4 times x, and we have 2 multiplied by 1.5. 1/4 multiplied by x, that's going to give us 1/4 x, and 2 multiplied by 1.5, that's going to give 3. Remember, we want to find what one of the x is equal to. We know that 1/4 of the x is equal to 3. We want to know what one of the x is equal to. Remember, I said you always divide by the coefficient of x, or the coefficient of the unknown, once the coefficient is not 1. Alright? So we have to divide by 1/4. Anything you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. So also divide 3 by 1/4. This expression here is saying, or this fraction here is saying, 1/4 x divided by 1/4. That's what it is saying. So this is saying 1/4 x divided by 1/4. And let's do it to the side here. So we have 1/4 x divided by 1/4. Remember, when dividing fractions, we keep the fraction before the division sign. We change the division sign to multiplication, and we flip the one that follows the sign. So we're going to keep the 1/4 x. We are changing the division sign to multiplication, and we are going to flip, so this now becomes 4/1. Multiply numerator with numerator, denominator with denominator. 1 times 4, that's going to give me 4. 4 times 1, that's also going to give me 4. So we have 4/4x, which is the same thing as what? 4 into itself will go 1, 4 into 4 will go 1. We are only left with x. So this will be left with x here. When we divide, that's gone. Any number divided by itself is always 1. Any number divided by itself is always 1. So we know that would be 1x or x. Same thing. We can do the other one now. 3. It's going to be 3 divided by 1/4. So we're going to do 3 divide by 1/4. That's the other side of the equation. It's best to be working with all fractions, so we can change that 3 to a fraction by just putting a 1 under it. To change any whole number to a fraction, we put a 1 under that whole number. Alright? And remember, we keep, change, and flip. Let me write it back here. We have 3 and 1/4 divided. Alright. So remember, we keep the fraction before the division sign, change the division sign, and we flip. So this remains the same, 3/1, change division sign to multiplication, flip the fraction that follows the sign, that becomes 4/1. So that's going to be equal to 12. So x is 12 feet. X equal 12 feet. Alright? Alright, we're looking at the same question. I wanted to just show you something from here. Another way that we could solve it. So, another way that we could solve it, once it's a fraction, is the coefficient of x. For it to become 1, you just multiply by the flip of the fraction. What am I saying? If I have 2/5, I want it to become 1, I multiply by 5/2. I multiply by the flip. 2 times 5 is 10, 5 times 2 is 10. That would cancel out, we are left with only 1. Alright? So, anytime the coefficient is a fraction, just multiply by the flip of the fraction. So we can multiply by 4/1. When we flip 1/4, it's 4/1. Anything you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. So you have to multiply the other side by 4/1. Can change the whole number to a fraction by just putting a 1 under the whole number. 4 times 1, is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. So we have 4/4x is equal to 3 times 4 is 12. 1 times 1, we know it's going to give us 1. So it remains 12. 4 into itself 1, 4 into 4 1. So x is equal to 12. See, we end up back with the same result. X equal to 12. So once the coefficient is a fraction, for it to become 1, because the aim is to find what one of the x is equal to, you multiply it by the flip of the fraction. Alright, and anything you do to one side, you have to do to the other side as well. Alright, you can pause the video for this one and try it, and then you can compare your answer with my answer that I'm going to get. The question says, in a scale drawing of an apartment, 1 centimeter represents 2 3/4 1/4 feet. If the length of the kitchen is 4.5 centimeters on the scale drawing, what is the actual length in feet of the kitchen? Right? In a scale drawing of an apartment, 1 centimeter represent 2 3/4 feet. Okay? If the length of the kitchen is 4.5 centimeters on the scale drawing, question now, what is the actual length of the kitchen in feet? So we want to find what is the actual length. So we identify the important components of the question. We know what the question is asking us to find. It is asking us to find the actual length of the kitchen. Alright? Remember, when you're solving, it's always scale length over actual length. Always scale length over actual length. Alright? First step, write the scale that is given in the question as a ratio in the form of a fraction. So we have 1 centimeter, so we'll go over 2 3/4. Alright? That would be equal to, it says, if the length of the kitchen is 4.5 on the scale drawing. So it says on the scale drawing, that means the 4.5 would go in the numerator because that's the scale. Alright, and we want to find the actual. That's what the question asks us to find, the actual. Once we have a mixed number, change our mixed number to an improper fraction. How do we change mixed number to an improper fraction? Let's go. We have 2 3/4. We multiply denominator with whole number, and then we add that to the numerator. So 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 3, that's going to give us 11. So that's 11/4. We write back the same denominator. So to change a mixed fraction to an improper fraction, you multiply denominator with the whole number. 4 times 2 give us 8. Then you add the numerator to it. So 8 plus 3 would give us 11, and you write back the same denominator. So that's 11/4. Alright, let's do 4.5. 4.5 multiply denominator with whole number, add the numerator. 4 times 2, 8. 8 plus 1 is 9, and we write back the same denominator. Alright, so we can rewrite the proportion here. This would be 1 and 11/4 equal to 9/2 all over x. Once we set it as a proportion, we cross multiply. 1 times x, and we have 11/4 multiplied by 9/2. So 11/4 multiplied by 9/2. So that's what we now have. 1 times x, that's x. When you multiply in the fractions, you can multiply numerator with numerator. 11 times 9, that's 99. 4 times 2, that's 8. So we have 99/8 as our answer. And we can write back that to a mixed fraction if we choose. Alright? We can write it back to a mixed fraction if we choose, by dividing the numerator by the denominator. 8 into 99 would go 12 times. Remember, 12 8 is 96. So we have a remainder of 3, and the denominator will be 8. And remember, the units would be feet. Right? So units is feet. So we have 12 and 3/4 feet there. Alright? It's the same procedure, it's just that we are working with fraction, just like when we are working with just a whole number. But it is the same procedure. And that will be the end of this video.